5, I love to be with friends. So eventually, these items are turned into 12. The third one is the experiences of sufferings, the EOS. This researcher believes that these components are based from the principle of that self-worth can be established by recognizing and turning suffering into human achievement or accomplishment. So as we all know, suffering is a part of human lives. So if the student do not have the capacity to take up nursing, he keeps on feeling. So definitely he is suffering. So that is the thing that we have to measure. So these are some of the components that I included. The word suffering simply does not appeal to me. Very simple indeed. I do not like to see myself suffer. I feel lucky all the time. I have a happy family. I like to see others suffer, and so on. The fourth component of the inventory is experiences of religion, or the EOR. This research believes that these components can grow the scale of self-worth from an individual by quantifying his ability to experience self-transcendence or love of the unknown and his relationship with his own God. Like for instance, the questions included here are, I love to attend Mass and church service every Sunday, not sleep the whole day, which eventually was actually revised because I have some Muslim students. Then I pray whenever I feel that I am a failure. I find consolation from Jesus all the time. I leave everything to Jesus. I am afraid of my future. Then the fifth component is the experiences of transcendence. These researchers also believe that these components can help measure the ability of an individual to transform personal tragedy into triumph, and the attitude it takes toward unavoidable suffering, which can indicate the amount of personal meaning or self-worth that he has. These are some of the questions that this researcher included in his skill inventory. Number 1, I am afraid to die now. Emotional pain simply does not appeal to me. I feel guilty when I offend others. When I witness others committing crimes, I do not tell authorities. If given a chance, I want to live forever. The terms pain and discomfort do not appeal to me. When I lose loved ones, it takes a long time for me to recover, and so on. These are all included in the book. Alright, of course, this researcher asked the expert to evaluate my components. So the components should be deleted from the list. So they are asked to mark if you're going to look at the appendices. So I have some questions there for the experts. So I asked them to evaluate the components, the 5 components. They have to mark that from 1 to 5, if that's acceptable or not. For 1, the component should be deleted from the list, so they should actually place 1. Place 2, if the component is acceptable, but the definition is not. Number 3, in the scale, the component is acceptable, but the definition is improvement. 4, the component and the definition are both acceptable. And number 5, the component and the definition are very much acceptable. So as a result, I came up with this. So I have 13 experts who evaluated the 5 components, the experiences of choice. The first expert got this result. For the EOC, he marked 4, EOP 3, experience of suffering 3, experiences of religion 3, and 4. For the second component, for the second expert, here are the results. For the third expert, here are the results. So the total, if we are going to add, we have 49, 49, 51. For the EOR, we have 51, and for the EOT, we have 51. So if we are going to look at the mean is total divided by 13. The average is 3.8, 3.8, 3.9 for the EOS, and for the EOR we got 3.9, and for the EOT we got 3.9. So the maximum score is 65. 65 per component. So the percentile ranking, we have 75.38% and so on. So all the components which are included with the test are accepted generally by the experts, as evidenced by the mean and the percentage, the percentile ranking. So the summary of the evaluation of the items mapped by the experts. After the components are actually evaluated, the experts are asked also to evaluate the different items. Here are different items for experiences of choice. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, which are included in the book also. So generally, it's accepted. So for the first one, 13 accepted. For the second item of EOC, 11 accepted, 1 rejected, 1 sent for revision. So we have here the recommendation, reconstruct the test item. For the third item of the EOC, 11 accepted, 1 rejected, and 1 for revision. So there is a recommendation for reconstruction. And so with the fourth item, 10 accepted, 2 rejected, 1 for revision. And the recommendation here is accepted. For item number 5, 5 accepted, 4 rejected, 4 revision. So the mean is 30.77, all right? And the recommendation here is to discard, therefore it's rejected. So item number 5, the same with item number 6, where out of the 13 experts, 7 accepted and 6 rejected. It's too low also. So we have to discard the item number 6. Item number 7 of the EOC, 5 among the 13 experts accepted, 7 rejected, 1 for revision. So the remark is rejected. So the recommendation is to discard the item. For the item number 8 of the EOC, 11 accepted, 1 rejected, 1 for revision. So the recommendation actually remark is accepted. Number 9 item, 12 accepted, 0 rejected, and 1 for revision. The same one with number 10. 12 accepted, 1 rejected, and 0 for revision. So the remark here is accepted, that will be included in the test. 11, 10 accepted, 3 rejected, 0 for revision. So the recommendation is accepted. 12 accepted, rejected, 0, and 1 for revision. So the item number 13 of the component EOC is going to be accepted. 14, all actually agreed to accept that. And 15, 10 accepted, 1 rejected, and 2 recommended for revision. So all the other remark is still accepted because most of them accepted. The same way with component number 2, the researcher actually went into this based on the evaluation of the expert. Item number 1, 10 accepted, 1 rejected, so the remark is accepted. Item number 2, 7 accepted, 6 rejected out of 13, so the remark is rejected, the recommendation is to discard. For number 3, the same way is too high, the acceptance is 6, 5 out of 13 also rejected the test. 2 out of 13 for revision. So the remark is rejected. This researcher will discard item number 3 for the component EOP. For EO4, 6 accepted, 5 rejected, 2 for revision. So the recommendation actually here is to discard. Therefore, the item number 4 is rejected. And number 5 item, as enumerated earlier, presented earlier, there is a unanimous decision among the 13 experts they accepted the component. So of course, naturally the remark here is accepted. For item number 6, 12 accepted, 1 rejected, 0 for revision, so the remark is accepted. Item number 7 of component number 2, 12 accepted and 1 for revision, so the remark is accepted. The same way with number 8, 11 accepted and 2 rejected. Number 9, of course, the remark is accepted. Number 9, 12 accepted, 1 rejected.
Madam Chair, I suggest that we skip
Alright, okay.
the presentation on the experts result validation. You can skip all the 5.
Yes, accepted. Alright. So the same way the researcher did this.
Yeah.
Alright, experiences of religion, experiences of transcendence. Okay. So after that recommendation, the researcher did the revision of the table of specification of the PMSI. So here, I'm using the recommendation of civilian. So I came up with the 3 objectives eventually. From 4, it's reduced into 3. So we have here, identify the different areas that provide meaningful experiences for aspiring Asian nurses. Describe how aspiring Asian nurses act in a certain experience. Demonstrate good coping mechanisms in the event of failures. So all the discarded items as recommended by the expert were not included. As you notice, we came out from 75 to 60 only. So all in all, number 1, objective, this researcher actually included only 4 items, EOR 4 items, EOD 4 items, we came out with 20. Objective number 2, 20. Objective number 3, 20. The final one, actually this is the distribution of respondents. So this researcher actually used the following respondents, total F. All in all, this researcher did have 300 respondents. The following distributions are 126 Malaysian, 2 of which are female, and the frequency is 2, the male, and 124 frequency female. Majority of them are female. So it accounts to 41.33% of the total population. Filipinos, 120. For male, we have 38. For female, 82. Filipino respondents account to 27.33%. For Thai, total is 3. This is divided, it is actually represented by all female. That accounts to 1% of the total population. Burmese or the Myanmarese, right? We have 2. So the male, nil, 0. For the female, 2. That accounts to 0.67%. Singaporeans, 45. Male, 2. 43 female. Singaporeans accounts to 14.33% of the total respondents. Taiwanese, 2. Male, 0. To the female, 2. That accounts to 67%, 0.67%. Chinese means from mainland China. In Malaysia, there are what we call as Chinese Malaysians. So this one are from mainland China, not Chinese Malaysians. 2, male 0, female 2. That accounts to 67%. So all in all, the male population accounts for 42 out of 300. This accounts for 40% of the total respondents. Female, we have 258 over 300. That accounts to 86% of the total respondents. So there is a big problem right now because there seems to be discrepancy between male and female. But as we know it, nursing is the profession of predominantly female. At least there is a big improvement because at least in the respondents we have 42. And for Malaysia this is notable because we have 2 respondents. But most of the time, male would prefer to become medical assistants rather than nurses. But right now, male nursing students are catching up. So here are actually the intercorrelations of items in the experience of choice. So this is an intercorrelated each item. Alright? Table 6 presents the intercorrelation of the item that's categorized under the experiences of choice. It is noted that the lowest value of R is 0.009. Therefore, when items 30 and 56 are correlated, and the highest noted value of R is taken when items 34 and 53 are correlated, registering a value of R that is exactly 0.258. All items also indicated that there is really a positive correlation, although it may not be high, but this is sufficient to retain all the items in the component of the experiences of choice. For EOP, so this researcher made correlations. Alright, for EOS, the same way. The data are here. So the interpretation for the EOS is that correlation matrix of similarity of the experiences of suffering is shown on table 6 in the book. The R values of all the items signify that there is a notable correlation among all the items, although several indicated negative correlation as specified, such as item 3 and 7. Item 3 and 7. Okay? That yielded a value R equal to negative 0.044. And the items with highest positive correlation are items 49 and 11 that yielded a value of R equal to 0.232 positive correlations. For the AOP, here are the correlations. 2 to 6, so on. For the religion, the same way. So the experiences of religion yielded both positive and negative correlations, but most of the items indicated positive correlation. That means all the items are acceptable to be included in the personal meaning skill inventory. The highest items with positive correlations are items number 15 and 12 with an R value of 0.434, very high. So EOT also, here's the correlation, 5, 8. So most significant value of R is 2.245, registered between items 20 and 38. 20 and 38, this one. 20 against 38. 0.245. Okay. And majority of the items do have a positive correlation, while the rest, like between items 5 and 17, 5 and 17, negative 0.44, okay, have negative correlation. But it doesn't mean that the items will be removed, so it has nothing to do with the measurement of the experiences of transcendence. Maybe the statement is negative. The reason why there is a positive correlation or negative correlation is because the statement of the item could be in negative or could be in positive. That's why we came out with positive or negative correlations. The reliability of the test. In order to establish the reliability of the personal meaning skill inventory, the split half technique as well as the alpha from back is actually in the appendices was used by comparing the two groups of the students from the original 300 respondents. This was done by splitting the items into two. The odd numbered in the split up the odd numbered items as one and the even numbered items as others. So this researcher actually divided the items into two, the odd numbers and the even numbered items. So the scores of the subjects on the odd numbered items were correlated with the scores with the even numbered items through the person product moment correlation. That's according to Sevilla et al. 2001 in the book Methods of Research, published by Rex Bookstore. For the reliability of the test, Here are the following reliability coefficients that were computed using split-half technique, right? Split-half correlation between form, 0.4835, equivalent Spearman Brown, 0.6519, got a split-half 0.6473, and equivalent Spearman, 0.6519, alpha part 1, alpha part 2, 0.5794, 0.7124 respectively. For the reliability of the test, another application to test the reliability of the inventory is to correct the subcomponents. The 12 components, each from the video components, the 5 components of the scale. That is, the essential characteristics of the internal consistency method must have a high coefficient value. So this research resulted into restating that from negative to positive. Table 11 shows the summary of the computed value of the alpha where the experiences of religion obtained the highest, that is equivalent to 0.6680, while experiences of choice got the second, which is equivalent to 0.4046, AOP 0.3901, followed by the EOT, which has the alpha value of 0.3788, and lastly, the EOS has a same value of 0.362. All the items included in the subcomponents are considered acceptable since these items fall on the level of significance. Here is the summary of the scale mean, standard deviation, and alpha of the 5 components. EOC, the scale mean is 41.0600. Here are the different values. AOP, 40. The experience of choice, the scale mean is 38, based from the responses of the respondents. Then EOR, based on the respondents using the scale 1 to 5. We have this scale mean of 46.1700. EOD or EOT 41.0233. For the construct validity, on the other hand, is that in order to determine the closeness of agreement between the scores and the test, the following were done. Actually, in test construction and scale construction, this researcher used PASAO as a comparison. So the PMSI used PASAO. PASAO is an examination developed by Milna PASAO. Okay. Mostly closely related to scale, to do self-worth, but not necessarily to adolescents. Some experts were asked to evaluate and criticize the test, after which the recommendations were considered in order to improve the components and subcomponents of the scale and obtain 3.90 as its mean. Alright, for the construct validity, as I said, experience of choice got 3.8 for a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Experiences of priorities 3.8. The reception of sufferings 3.9. Experiences of religion got 3.9. And experiences of transcendence is 3.9 as its mean. Now here, the concept validity was determined by correlating the PASAO scale. The PASAO is a self-concept rating scale. This is not personal meaning, but this is a self-concept developed by Dr. Bernard Pasao of Philippine Normal University. She called her test as Pasao self-concept rating scales, right? Here, scores of the respondents with the personal meaning scale inventory would actually be compared. So the Pasao self-concept rating scale, which is bilingual, it's in Filipino and in English. Mine is only in English. Alright, but there are also some suggestions here. If I'm going to market my scale inventory, I would translate that into Malay, the language that's understood by Malaysians, or Chinese, the language understood by Chinese. So it could be bilingual also based on the countries. These are some of the suggestions given to us. So the Pasao self-concept rating scale, which bilingual evolved from the need for a self-concept scale applicable to Philippine culture, according to De Jesus, 1998. So it is said that the concept validity rests partly on the assumption that a new test should correlate highly with other variables with which it should theoretically correlate. In this case, PASAL and the PMSI, or the personal meaning skill inventory. The person product moment correlation, another coefficient of the correlation was used to determine the relationship of the two tests, the PASAL self-concept rating scale and the personal meaning scale inventory, that we used to validate the theory behind that test. It was been noted earlier that self-worth must originate from the thorough knowledge of the self and the innate intelligence of an individual. And the result of the correlation showed that the PASAL self-concept rating scale is moderately correlated with personal meaning skill inventory, since the value of R is equal to 0.58. Here is the tentative manual of the personal meaning skill inventory. Here, the components are, the different items are actually distributed in order to avoid pattern. This is the thing that we have to look into test construction, the pattern. That's why it was jumbled. So if you're going to look at number 1 to 16, the components that account for experiences of choice would be item 1, 9, 14, 21, 26, 30, 34, 39, 42, 47, 53, and 56. For the experiences of choice, it would be item 2, 6, 10, 8, 10, 22, 23, 35, 43, 48, 51, 54, and 57. Then for the EOS, the same. Here are to you guys already the PMSI items as enumerated there in the book. For the EOR on page 103, I think. Experiences of religion, the same way. These are distributed on the items, total 160, but EOR accounts for this, items number 4, 12, 16, 24, 28, and so on. For the experiences of transcendence, items 5, 8, 13, 17, 20, 25, and so on. Alright. The possible score that a person or an aspiring Asian nurse can obtain based on the meaning skill inventory will be the following. They would have very high, that's 300, if they would score high or they would scale high. Scale 4, 240, Scale 3, 380, Scale 2, 120, and Scale 1, 60. So the highest score would be 300, and the lowest score would be 60. Okay? Alright. So, administration procedures. It's very important also to guide the one who is going to administer, like the guidance counselors and school psychometricians or psychologists or school psychologists. So the personal meaning skill inventory is administered individually or in group. There is no time limit, but the test can be finished by 25 minutes. So if the test will be given, the students can take the whole day because there is no time limit, but it can be finished within 25 minutes. It can only be given to any adolescent and aspiring Asian nurses with ages ranging from 15 to 21 years old. 22 anymore, 22 is invalid. 14, not suitable for them. The instrument uses a Likert scale from 1 to 5. It has no correct or wrong answers. In each item, the respondent is asked to read statement carefully and rate himself according to the following scale. Number 1 accounts for not true to me at all. 2, rarely true to me. 3, sometimes true to me. 4, often true to me. And 5, always true to me. So here could be the possible norms and standard from 1 to 5. Standard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have more labeled on classifications here. The IPM, LDPM, EPM, WPM, WDPM, BWDPM. So here could be their scores. 250 and above, 230 above, they could have this. Okay? And for 187 to 229, we could have this. Well-developed personal meaning. From 166 to 186, this is adequate personal meaning. Then here, 134 to 165, we have a low-developed personal meaning and insufficient, inadequate personal meaning from 133 below. But based from the respondent score, there is actually here, the one who scored 251 and above is only 1. The one that scored based from the 300, not 6 out of the 300 only scored 241 to 250. So that accounts to 93.30 percentile rank. So that means 4.09, so it's included in the ESTA-9A. This is the norming that we have. So for 230 to 240, 18, and the percentile rank is 86.70. That means 3.92 is still, the ESTA-9 level is 8 still. So the classification is very well developed personal meaning. For 220 to 229, there are 47 respondents who scored this range. That accounts to 80 percentile rank. Then the mean is 3.74. That accounts to ESTA-9 number 7. ESTA-9 is very, very important to psychometrics. This will be how we norms, or we are going to compare the score of others eventually when they take the examinations themselves. For 209 to 219, 83 of 300 scored this range. That accounts to 73.30 percentile rank, and the mean is 3.57. The ESTA-9 is still 7. 198 to 208, 67, the percentile rank is 66.70. The mean is 3.38, and the ESTA-9 is 6. So 187 to 197, there are 43 aspiring Asian nurses who scored this range. That accounts to 60 percentile rank, and the mean is 3.20. It is under ESTA-9 number 5. So the classification is well-developed personal meaning. So 176 to 186, 21 out of 300 of the aspiring Asian nurses who participated in the study, and it accounts to 53.30 percentile ranking. The mean is 3.02. It's still under ESTA-9 number 4, I mean. And there is what we call as the interpretation of classifications under adequate personal meaning. So 155, 165, 40 percentile rank, and ESTA-9 is number 3. 144 to 144, only 1. So 33.30, 2, and so on. So actually, this is how we do it. So the researcher actually classified the range that the percentile rank would actually be placed in this case, where the students would actually score. So here are actually the ESTA-9 and the normings. DPM, very well developed personal meaning, that's the meaning of that. WDPM, well developed personal meaning. EPM, adequate personal meaning. LDPM, less developed personal meaning. And IPM, inadequate personal meaning. So that's how we classify it. Alright, here is actually the summary of the personal meaning skill inventory. We have here age level 15 to 21. It should be given to the title of the test. It could be revised later, maybe Salgado skill inventory. So, but right now, currently the working title is personal meaning skill inventory by this researcher. The age level is 15 to 21. The variables are 5, EOC, EOP, EOS, EOR, EOT. The height items are on the following for the EOC 19 and so on, as it was discussed earlier. For the time, as this researcher mentioned, there is no time limit, but the test can be taken in 25 minutes only. So the directions needed is actually there written in the examination booklet. The examinees are expected to go through each item and complete the inventory for around 25 minutes. Although there is no time limit, indicate your answer in the answer sheet as it is applied to you. Shade the component the corresponding number of your choice. Then the scoring each item is keyed on the appropriate scale using 5 stencils. So this researcher used stencils and corresponding to each component, the EOC, EOP, EOS, EOR, and EOT. So the stencil is like making a hole in the corresponding number and look if the aspiring Asian nurses is scored that way. What is the score on that particular scale? Like for instance, number 2, for the experience of P, this researcher actually make a hole on number 2 for the AOP. So the researcher would actually determine which among the scale from 1 to 5 did the student or the person or aspiring Asian nurse actually mark. So then eventually he would actually mark this one. So this is the computations. So the AOC, it is counted separately, yeah, based on the items which are actually enumerated here. So for the interpretations is here and norming. Interpretations of the scores on the PMSI is made by reference to norms prepared by the inventory. For the inventory, the corresponding score is assigned in every answer and the highest possible score is 300. The lowest possible score is 60. Just in case the student would mark 111 because in the scale there is no 0 mark. The higher the point, the more profound the perception of the adolescents with his meaning. The highest and the lowest scores shall be considered to determine the self-worth of the examinee. The scorer and interpretation is based on the developed 9. So the important thing that we need to consider here is this: the highest score and the lower score, the lowest score. Which among the 5 components of where the candidate scored the most and scored the less? Because if you're going to determine which among these 5 components this candidate scored the less, the school administrator, the guidance counselor can actually or will know for sure which part of the remaining component would actually be enriched more. Alright, so with that, I completed my presentations. So you are actually the books that this researcher used, the unpublished manuscripts. These are the theses and dissertations from graduate students.
Unpublished.
Published, yes. With that, thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Have a picture. What do you like? Drink?
Thank you so much.
Candy? Or thank you very much. And now, the second part of our program is clarification or verification or asking of questions. So who likes to start first? Gentleman first, as the hometown evaluator.
Okay, no, actually I like the paper, it's very interesting. And the data is rich because it conducted it with sufficient number of participants in your study. However, I just want to clarify a few things here. And the very first thing that I'd like to ask would be the title itself of in your dissertation, you're saying about Asian nurses, right? But have you defined very clearly in your paper what Asian nurses all about? Because if you say Asian nurses, so that means you're trying to distinguish that one from the other nurses around the globe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another question here is that your methodology part is good. However, I am just a bit unclear when it comes to your research design. Yeah, because in fact, the research design is not really properly outlined in the paper what exactly the research design is all about. Although we can say that it would be quantitative because you're using. But going back to the paper to your dissertation, you're talking about experiences, and based on the experiences, you were able to construct the questionnaire. I'm just wondering how did you come up with that questionnaire without even examining the experiences of the individual from the participants from different Asian countries? Because when you talk about the experiences, most probably you would undergo this phenomenological studies or something like that. So I was even thinking that it would be great if I'm going to do a paper similar to yours, most probably I'm going to do a mixed research design, where I'm going to start first with the phenomenological study, then after that one I can construct the questionnaire, which I have a very valid way of constructing the questionnaire, because the dissertation itself, it talks about construction. Yeah, but you mentioned in your presentation that you based it in the literature. Basing that one in the literature itself, for me, it can be, but in a dissertation like this, I think coming up with, directly from the participants themselves, then you can draw, from their personal experiences, then you can identify those different measures that you mentioned, will perhaps make your paper even better than what you have just presented. Okay, we're able to get it.
Yeah.
You can just answer to me later on. Then one more thing is that I'm just very concerned because you mentioned you did this one similar in your master's thesis. Then if it would be similar with your master's thesis, I'm just very concerned. What would be the contribution of your dissertation in this field?
This is okay.
Yeah, and because this one is a dissertation, so it should contribute in the body of knowledge, something like that. So, and then you were talking about the different participants from different Asian countries, and in fact, you're focusing here on the Asian nurses in particular, but based on your data that you've presented, you even have 2 from Thailand, if I can remember it right, and 3 from Thailand, 2 from Myanmar, and 2 from Taiwan, and 2 from China, which if you're going to compare with the other participants from Malaysia, Philippines, and Singapore, there's a huge difference, I'm claiming Asians with very minimal participants from the other Asian countries would probably be quite scary to give the very strong claim on that. And perhaps, but I think perhaps putting this one in your delimitation that, when you talk about Asian